I never thought my own father would betray me like this. The house in Colorado had been my sanctuary since Mom passed away 3 years ago, leaving it to me in her will. Dad seemed to be doing okay in his apartment across town, and our weekly dinners had brought us closer than ever before. Then everything changed when he showed up at my doorstep with Jessica, introducing her as his new wife. No warning, no discussion, just a bombshell that would turn my peaceful life upside down in ways I never imagined possible. Before I tell you how my own father betrayed my trust, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from. Hit that subscribe button if you have ever had family. Take advantage of your kindness. You will not believe what I had to do to reclaim what was rightfully mine. At 35, I had finally found my groove. My remote position as a software engineer for a tech startup gave me the freedom to work from anywhere, and nowhere felt more right than the 2-story colonial my mother had lovingly maintained for decades. When she lost her battle with cancer 3 years ago, she left the house to me in her will. It was her way of ensuring I always had a place to call home, especially after my marriage fell apart 5 years earlier. Dad took her death hard. At 62, he suddenly seemed 20 years older, shoulders permanently stooped with grief. He moved into a small 1-bedroom apartment across town, saying the family home held too many memories. I understood. Every corner echoed with her laughter, her perfume somehow lingering in the hallway no matter how many times I repainted. Our relationship had always been complicated. Dad was old school, believing men showed love through provision rather than words. Growing up, he had worked 60-hour weeks, rarely making it to my baseball games, but never missing a tuition payment. After Mom died, something shifted. Our weekly Sunday dinners became a ritual, awkward at first, but gradually evolving into something I looked forward to. We were healing, or so I thought. The house itself had become my passion project. I had renovated the kitchen with custom cabinets, installed hardwood floors throughout the first level, and transformed the backyard into a garden that would have made Mom proud. Her roses still bloomed every spring, a living memorial I tended with religious dedication. This was my sanctuary, my inheritance, both financially and emotionally. When Dad called asking if he could stop by with a surprise, I expected maybe a new fishing rod or tickets to a Rockies game. What I got instead was Jessica, a petite blonde with a dazzling smile and shrewd eyes that assessed my home the moment she crossed the threshold. "Dick, I would like you to meet my wife." Dad announced, his arm wrapped possessively around her waist. Jessica was stunning for her age, which I guessed to be around 50. Her handshake was firm, her southern accent honey sweet. "We got married in Vegas 2 weeks ago." Dad continued, looking simultaneously guilty and defiant. "Been dating for 3 months. Just knew she was the one." 3 months. My father, who deliberated for weeks before buying new shoes, had married someone after knowing her for 12 weeks. I struggled to process this information while preparing a hasty dinner for my unexpected guests. Dad had never even mentioned dating anyone. Jessica complimented everything from my cooking to my furniture arrangement, but something felt performative about her enthusiasm. When I asked how they met, Dad let her do most of the talking, a story about bumping carts at Whole Foods that sounded rehearsed. Throughout dinner, I caught her eyeing the crown, molding the expensive appliances, the view from the dining room windows, taking inventory. As they were preparing to leave, Dad cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Jessica's condo is being painted this week. Mind if we stay here for a few days? Would mean a lot to us, son." Despite the deadline looming for my current project and my need for solitude to concentrate, I found myself agreeing. How could I refuse? This was my father, and despite the shock, I wanted him to be happy. That night, passing by the guest room, on my way to the kitchen, I overheard Jessica on the phone. "It is perfect, Amber. Much bigger than I expected. Great neighborhood, too." There was a pause before she continued, voice lower. "Well, of course we will not stay in that shoebox forever. This is the perfect setup." Something cold settled in my stomach as I returned to my bedroom. Perfect setup for what exactly? Jessica moved in with a single suitcase, but seemed to produce new possessions daily. Family photos appeared on my mantel. None containing my mother, of course. Scented candles replaced the subtle pine air fresheners I preferred. Small changes easily dismissed, yet collectively transforming my home into unfamiliar territory. Then came the invasion. Kyle arrived first, Jessica's 28-year-old son. He showed up unannounced one afternoon, while I was in the middle of a video conference. My doorbell rang incessantly until I had to excuse myself from the meeting. Standing on my porch was a lanky young man with Jessica's blue eyes and a complete disinterest in making a good impression. "You must be Dick," he said, not offering his hand. "Mom said the bottom guest room is mine." Before I could respond, he brushed past me, wheeling in a massive suitcase followed by 3 large boxes containing various gaming consoles. Dad appeared behind him, helping carry more belongings, offering an apologetic shrug but no actual apology. "Kyle's lease ended, and he needs a place temporarily," Dad explained. "Your stepmom thought it would be nice for you two to get acquainted." Stepmom. The word felt foreign, wrong. I had known Jessica for exactly 5 days at this point. Kyle set up his gaming command center in the guest room that shared a wall with my home office. His shouts during online matches routinely disrupted my work calls, and his nocturnal schedule meant thumping bass and colorful commentary until 3 in the morning. When I politely requested he use headphones after 11, he agreed, then conveniently forgot the very next night. Amber arrived 3 days later, Jessica's 25-year-old daughter. Unlike her brother, she made an effort to charm, complimenting my quaint decorating choices while simultaneously suggesting improvements. A self-described content creator, she immediately claimed the sunroom as her filming space, rearranging furniture to create the perfect backdrop for her beauty tutorials. "Hope you do not mind," she said, not actually waiting for a response as she hung ring lights from my bookshelves. "The lighting in here is absolutely perfect for my skin tone." What had started as a few days stretched into 2 weeks with no mention of departure. Jessica began referring to our home during dinner conversations, discussing potential renovation ideas as if she had a say in the matter. Dad remained uncharacteristically passive, deferring to her on everything from meal planning to which programs to watch. I returned home from a grocery run one afternoon to find the living room completely rearranged. My comfortable leather sofa had been pushed against the wall, replaced by Jessica's floral print settee as the room's focal point. The vintage record player that had belonged to my grandfather was nowhere to be seen. "Where's my record player?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Oh, that old thing," Jessica replied without looking up from her magazine. "I put it in the garage. It did not really match the new aesthetic I am going for." Before I could respond, I noticed something even more disturbing. My mother's collection of hand-painted teacups, her pride and joy, had been removed from their display cabinet. And Mom's teacups, those dusty things, they are boxed up in the attic. We needed space for Amber's trophy collection from her pageant days. I stood there, grocery bags heavy in my arms, watching as strangers systematically erased my mother's presence from her own home. Dad sat in his recliner, eyes fixed on the television, saying nothing. That evening, Jessica prepared dinner, dismissing my weekly meal prep containers. "No one wants to eat that bland fitness food, honey. I made my famous meatloaf, your father's favorite." Dinner became an exercise in exclusion. Jessica, Kyle, and Amber dominated the conversation with inside jokes and shared memories. Dad laughed along occasionally, trying to include me with awkward segues that fell flat. I became a visitor at my own table. "Remember when we went to the Grand Canyon last summer?" Jessica asked Dad, though they had only known each other for months. "Best trip ever," he replied, squeezing her hand. "We should go back," Kyle interjected. "This time we could stay longer, since we will not have rent to worry about." An uncomfortable silence followed. I looked at my father, waiting for him to clarify that this living arrangement was temporary. He studied his meatloaf with sudden intensity. Later that night, I overheard them through the kitchen door. "I think it is time we discussed moving in permanently," Jessica was saying. "No sense paying for the condo when we could all live here together." "Dick might not be ready for that," my father responded, his voice uncertain. "Nonsense. This house is much too big for just him. Besides, we are family now. Family helps family. You are right, as always, Dad conceded. He would not mind. It is what his mother would have wanted. I felt sick. My mother would never have wanted this. She left the house to me, not to strangers, who moved my belongings without permission and treated me like an unwelcome roommate. The next morning I confronted Dad while Jessica was in the shower. Are you planning to move in permanently? I asked directly. He had the decency to look embarrassed. Well, son, I thought it might be nice. One big happy family under one roof. You never asked me. This is my house, Dad. His expression hardened. Family helps family, Dick. Your mother would be disappointed by your selfishness. The invocation of my mother struck like a physical blow. Before I could recover, the situation deteriorated further. Kyle began inviting friends over for weekend-long gaming tournaments. 6 guys crammed into my living room, empty pizza boxes and energy drink cans, littering every surface. The monthly water bill doubled, then tripled, with Amber's hour-long showers and daily laundry cycles for her content wardrobe. Bro, your Wi-Fi is trash, Kyle complained one day. I took the liberty of upgrading to a business account. Split 4 ways, it is only $80 each. I never agreed to this upgrade, but the installation had already happened while I was at a coffee shop trying to get work done away from the chaos. Meanwhile, Amber had transformed my backyard into her personal studio. My followers are loving the garden backdrop, she informed me, trampling through my mother's carefully tended flower beds to get better angles for her selfies. The final boundary crossing came when I returned from a rare evening out with friends to find Jessica and Dad in my bedroom, the master suite that had explicitly remained off limits. What are you doing in here? I demanded. Jessica did not even flinch. Just measuring for new curtains. This room gets the best light, and it seems silly for it to go to waste when you are always working in your office anyway. Dad chimed in, not meeting my eyes. We thought you might be more comfortable in the basement bedroom. More privacy down there, son. They wanted my bedroom, in my own house. The room where I could still sometimes catch the faintest trace of Mom's presence on the early morning air. That night I discovered an unpaid mortgage notice in the mail. Alarmed, I checked my accounts to find the automatic payment had been stopped. When confronted, Dad muttered something about temporary cash flow issues, since they had purchased new living room furniture, without consulting me. The breaking point came one sunny Saturday. I had been working late nights all week to meet a deadline, finally earning a day to rest. I planned to spend it in Mom's garden, tending to the spring bulbs she had planted the autumn before she died. Instead, I emerged from my bedroom to the sound of machinery. Following the noise to the backyard, I froze in horror. A construction crew was tearing up my mother's beloved rose garden. The bushes she had nurtured for 20 years lay uprooted and discarded like weeds. What is happening? I shouted over the equipment. Jessica appeared at my side, beaming. Surprise. We are installing a hot tub. Will not it be wonderful for summer parties? Who authorized this? This is my mother's garden. Oh, Dick, she replied, patting my arm condescendingly. Your father and I agreed it was time for some updates. Those old plants were honestly an eyesore. Dad stood by the back door, silent and avoidant. Kyle and Amber watched from the patio, smirking. You should be grateful, Amber called out. That ancient garden was totally bringing down your property value. Yeah, bro, Kyle added. Stop being so uptight. It is just some stupid flowers. Jessica lowered her voice, smile never wavering. Listen, honey, we have decided we are moving in permanently. Your father deserves to enjoy his retirement in a nice home, and this place is much too big for just one person anyway. We are family now, and families share. That evening, while everyone was out at dinner, a meal I declined to join, I searched through the stack of mail that had accumulated on the kitchen counter. Buried beneath flyers and catalogs was an overdue mortgage notice, the second one this month. Next to it was a glossy brochure for Sunset Haven Senior Living in Tampa, Florida, with Dad and Jessica's names written on the front. The pieces suddenly clicked into place with sickening clarity. They were not just taking over my home. They were planning to sell it. The perfect setup Jessica had mentioned that first night was not about blending families. It was about accessing the considerable equity in my fully paid-off house. When confronted with the evidence, Dad finally broke down. Jessica had convinced him that after all he had sacrificed raising me, I owed them a comfortable retirement. The plan was to gradually move and establish residency, then suggest selling the house to help everyone. They would use the proceeds for a condo in Florida while well, my future apparently had not factored into their calculations. She says you are young enough to start over, Dad admitted, unable to meet my eyes. That this house is wasted on just one person. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. This was the man who had taught me about integrity, about respecting other people's property. Now he was conspiring to take my inheritance, not just a house but the last physical connection to my mother. I called a family meeting the next morning. Seated at the dining table my mother had lovingly restored, I calmly explained that I had consulted my attorney. This house legally belongs to me, I stated, placing the deed and will on the table. Mom left it to me specifically with no conditions or expectations. Jessica's pleasant mask slipped immediately. How dare you wave legal documents in our faces? We are family. Family does not try to steal from each other, I replied. Steal? Is that what you call? Providing a roof over your father's head? After everything he has sacrificed for you, Dad attempted to mediate. Now. Dick is just upset about the garden. We should have asked first. This is not about the garden, Dad. It is about respect and boundaries, neither of which have been shown since you all arrived. Kyle snorted. Boundaries. In a family. Grow up, dude. This is my house, I repeated firmly. I have never agreed to anyone moving in permanently. You have 30 days to find alternative living arrangements. Jessica's eyes narrowed dangerously. You would throw your own father out. That is elder abandonment. We could sue you for that. Dad is welcome to stay if he respects my boundaries. The rest of you need to leave. After all I have done for you, Dad interjected, voice trembling. I worked 60-hour weeks to put food on your table, and this is how you repay me. By leaving me homeless. You have an apartment, Dad. The one you have been renting for 3 years. We gave that up. Jessica snapped. The lease ended last week. Another detail they had conveniently failed to mention. They had never intended this to be temporary. From the moment they arrived, the plan had been to stay permanently, whether I agreed or not. The next few weeks were tense beyond description. Jessica alternated between icy silence and tearful accusations about my cruelty. Kyle accidentally damaged several of my possessions, including spilling soda on my laptop. Amber spread rumors on social media about me being an abusive stepbrother. Dad simply looked disappointed whenever our paths crossed a silent guilt trip that might have worked if I had not discovered their plans. Items began disappearing. Small valuables, documents, even family photos. I installed security cameras, which Jessica claimed was invasive and showed a lack of trust. When I discovered them attempting to access my home office, where I kept important financial documents, I changed the locks. This is illegal, Jessica shouted through the door. You cannot lock out family members. Watch me, I replied, finally finding my voice after weeks of manipulation. The situation reached breaking point when I returned home to find them speaking with a real estate agent in my living room. Just getting an estimate, Jessica explained sweetly. For insurance purposes. I asked the agent to leave and confronted them directly. This ends now. You either respect that this is my house, and these are my rules, or you find somewhere else to live immediately. We will contest your mother's will. Dad threatened a stranger wearing my father's face. Jessica has a friend who's a probate lawyer. He says we have a case for undue influence. My mother was of sound mind when she left me this house. Her doctor lawyer and a dozen friends can attest to that. But go ahead and try. The legal fees will come out of your retirement fund, not mine. That night, I cut off the Wi-Fi cable TV and changed the security code on the alarm system. Basic necessities would remain: electricity, water, heat. But the luxuries they had taken for granted were now gone. I also took back my credit card, which they had somehow been using for grocery deliveries and online shopping. The psychological warfare escalated. Notes were left on my car claiming I was abusive. Anonymous calls were made to my employer suggesting I was working on personal projects during company time. Jessica even contacted my ex-wife, trying to dig up dirt that could be used against me. Then came the turning point. Dad collapsed while mowing the lawn, a chore he had taken up to demonstrate his contribution to the household. It was not a heart attack as we initially feared, but severe dehydration combined with stress. As I sat by his hospital bed, I realized I was still responsible for his well-being regardless of his poor choices. "Where's Jessica?" he asked weakly, looking around the hospital room. "I called her 2 hours ago. She said they were busy apartment hunting." His face fell. No more words were needed. The woman who claimed to love him could not be bothered to visit him in the hospital, while the son she had tried to paint as selfish and cruel had been there since the ambulance arrived. Something shifted in Dad's eyes, recognition perhaps of what he had done and who truly cared for him. "I am sorry, son," he whispered, tears tracking down his weathered cheeks. "I got caught up in, I do not know what. The idea of a ready-made family again. A pretty woman who seemed to need me. She needed access to my house." I corrected gently. "Not you." He nodded slowly. "Your mother would be ashamed of me." When Dad was released from the hospital, Jessica, Kyle, and Amber were noticeably absent, having suddenly remembered a family emergency out of state. Dad moved into the guest room properly, no longer attempting to claim master bedroom rights. Together we began the process of reclaiming the home that had been invaded. The first step was changing the locks, all of them. Next came cleanup, removing the garish decorations, and restoring my mother's treasured items to their rightful places. Her teacups returned to the display cabinet. The record player resumed its position of honor in the living room. Most importantly, we began the painstaking process of replanting her garden, Dad working alongside me to research which varieties of roses she had lovingly tended. She kept a garden journal, Dad remembered one afternoon, unearthing a leather-bound notebook from his few remaining possessions. Every plant when it was planted, special care instructions. She was always so organized. Through soil and sweat, our relationship began to heal. Not completely. Trust once broken is never fully restored. But enough that we could sit on the patio in the evenings, watching the sunset in comfortable silence. Jessica tried returning once, all tears and apologies, having discovered that her backup plan, another widower with a nice house, had family who were not so easily manipulated. Dad firmly but politely asked her to leave. "I made a choice," he told me later, "between genuine family and the illusion of it. I am sorry it took me so long to see the difference." We established boundaries. Dad eventually moved back to his own apartment, one in a better complex closer to my house. We resumed our Sunday dinners, the ritual now infused with newfound respect. The inheritance my mother left me remained secure, protected by legal safeguards against any future claims. Family loyalty is complex, but self-respect must come first. Through this ordeal, I learned that setting boundaries is not selfish. It is necessary for healthy relationships. I had to fight for what was rightfully mine, but in doing so, I preserved not just a house but my mother's legacy of love and care. Dad and I are rebuilding on more solid ground now, with clear expectations and mutual respect guiding our interactions. The garden is blooming again this spring. Each flower feels like a victory, a reminder that some things once rooted deeply enough can survive even the harshest storms. My home is peaceful once more, filled with memories rather than tension. I have learned that sometimes protecting what you love means standing firm even against those who should be in your corner. Have you ever had to stand up to family for what was rightfully yours? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support helps me continue sharing these difficult life lessons. Thank you for listening, and remember, blood may be thicker than water, but respect is the foundation of any relationship worth keeping.